think we need lights on, guys. I feel like I'm preaching in the dark up here. There we go. Can you see me now? McGriddles are great. I had never had a McGriddle. I like Egg McMuffins. I like sausage McMuffins. I like Chick-fil-A chicken breakfast biscuits. I like chicken, egg, and cheese biscuits. I just never had a McGriddle. I don't know why. But I found myself yesterday wandering into a McDonald's, led by the Spirit of God. And I opened my app, and I'm a customer. I'll bear the shame, okay? I'll bear the shame. You can mock me and scorn me, but it was my doctor that said, continue with your current lifestyle. So apparently it's working well for me. So I opened the app. I thought I was after time for breakfast, but what do you know? I realized they're serving breakfast late today, and there's a reward for a McGriddle. And I was like, this must be the will of God for me to have a McGriddle. And I'll tell you, my life was changed yesterday. I feel as though I've wasted a decade or more, however long a McGriddle's been on the menu. I just feel like, what happened? Why? How did I hurt all these people? Why did nobody ever tell me? So my life was changed. So I want you to capture this little vignette. Someone gave me good news. McGriddles are great. And my life was changed. I have a new desire that never existed in my life before. I never, ever, ever woke up, ever in my life, when I want a McGriddle. Until this morning. And now I have a new desire. Good news changed me. Now, there are two approaches to chapter 12 of the book of Romans. And I want to make sure we are taking the right approach. Romans chapter 12 is either good advice or it is good news. And when you read Romans chapter 12, it sounds a lot like good advice. Paul is taking us on a journey. We're 11 chapters into all the beauty and the theology and the what's called the indicatives, the realities of God's saving grace. This is who God is, this is who we are, this is what God has done, and this is how powerful it is. 11 chapters of the transformational power of God's love and God's grace and all the beauty of it. And now in chapter 12, we go from theological to practical. And all of a sudden, Paul is painting a picture, he's painting a portrait of what does it look like when this love takes over your life? What does it look like when you find out McGriddles are great? And that news changes you from the inside and gives birth to new decisions and new desires. When the weather's good, I like to take bike rides. And it's a good way to get with God, to get alone, to process through. It's good exercise. And I've been doing a lot of bike riding, spring, summer, up until even this week. It's getting a little cold. And I'm kind of sad that the weather's changing. I'm going to have to wait on bike riding for a couple of months probably. But I made, not long ago, maybe a month or two ago, I made a playlist. I specifically called it Bike Rides. And I put probably 50 songs, maybe, 30, 40 songs on that playlist. They're all my favorite Christian songs that motivate me, that stir me, that remind me of God's greatness and His power and His love and His call on my life. They're songs that I want to sing out loud while I'm riding that bike. They're songs that stir me and kind of re-motivate me and re-energize me and renew my soul. And there was a song that got on the list that I didn't really realize that it got on the list. And it wasn't a song that jumped out to me or that, really dominated my thinking. And the first couple of times I heard it, I thought it was hard to even follow. It's a little punchy and it's kind of fast moving. But somehow I just left it on the playlist and I stopped clicking past it or fast forwarding because I'm focused on writing. So the song, the last few weeks, it keeps playing through the playlist and it keeps coming to that song. So I've gotten more familiar with it. And the song is a song by Stephen Curtis Chapman, and it's called Love, Take Me Over. Has anybody ever heard this song? I'm just curious. Love, Take Me Over. I see 4 or 5 hands. Okay, so here's the words to this song. I hear the clock beep, pull me out of my sleep, tell me there's a day ahead of me. Trying to wake up, sipping on a hot cup with the little lady in green. I think that's a reference to Starbucks, which is really the only heresy in the whole song. But the song continues, he says, and I'm praying about the man I want to be, saying, God, please take all of me. That's Romans 12:1. And fill me up with your love. And the chorus then says, love, take these words that I'm speaking. Love, take these thoughts that I'm thinking. Love, take me over. Love, fill up all of my space. And love, stand right here in my place. And love, hear this prayer that I'm praying. Love, take me over. Love, take me over. Love, take me over. Second verse. This is what I'm sure of. I can only show love when I really know how loved I am. When it overtakes me, then it animates me, flowing from my heart into my hands. So I'm praying, Father, help my heart believe that right now you're singing over me and fill me up with your love. And then the chorus goes on again. As I've heard and thought about those words over the last several weeks, I would say the last 2 or 3 weeks, I actually got into this song and actually started praying that song as I was writing. It became more than just background noise in my head. And it all of a sudden became, yeah, I am praying about the man I want to be. And yeah, I do want the love of Christ to take over. And if you're like me, it's like you so want it to happen, but then when you examine your life and your behavior and your patterns of life, you're like, I am such a loser. Like, it's so easy to sing the song, Love, Take Me Over, and it's so easy to go off the rails as soon as the song's over. I really want to be that man. I bet you want to be that person. C.S. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity about the transformed life, and that's what Paul is profiling for us in Romans 12, what it means to lose our conformity to the world and be transformed by the good news of God's love. Listen to these words. Imagine yourself as though you are a living house. God comes in to rebuild the house. At first, perhaps you can understand what he's doing. He's getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. And you knew those jobs needed doing, so you're not surprised. But presently, he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably. And it does not seem to make any sense. What on earth is he up to? The explanation is he's building quite a different house from the one you thought of. He's throwing out a new wing here and putting up an extra floor there and running up towers and making courtyards. And you thought you were being made into a decent little cottage, but he is building a palace. And he intends to come and live in it himself. So back to Romans 12, it's a transformational chapter. It's about love taking over our lives. It's about good news taking over our lives. But if you're not careful, you'll read it as good advice. There are in this chapter, depending on how you count them, 30 to 40 directives. Now, I'm going to read you the list of directives in this chapter. You can try to follow along if you want. You'll see them. So here's the list of directives in Romans chapter 12. Present your bodies a living sacrifice. Don't be conformed to this world. Be transformed. Don't think of yourself more highly than you ought, but think with sober judgment. Use your gifts according to grace. If prophecy, prophesy. If service, serve. If teaching, teach. If exhorting, exhort. If giving, give generously. If leading, lead diligently. If showing mercy, do it cheerfully. If let love be genuine. Abhor that which is evil. Cling to good. Be devoted to one another. Honor one another. Be not slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Show hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty. Associate with the lowly. Do not be wise in your own sight. Repay no one evil. Do what is honorable. Live peaceably. Never avenge. Leave wrath to God. Feed your enemy. Give him to drink. Do not be overcome with evil. Overcome evil with good. Did you get it? 43 things I just read to you. If this is good advice, I'm flattened. Like I was struggling with the 10 that God gave me in Exodus. And Paul just quadrupled it, plus 3. Now I got 43 things to work on, and here's my fear, is that you write down this chapter and I know you all, you love God, you love his word, you want to go out and do it. So you go out and you work hard on these 43 things all week. You list them out, you pray over them, you look at them every morning, and by the end of the day, you're like, I'm such a loser. I quit. This is where it goes if you just try harder. You just end up quitting. Because I don't care if there's 5 things on the list or 45 things on the list. Let's be honest. How are we going to really do this week? Are we going to be a smashing success at all 43 of these things? No. We're going to fail. And it seems to me the harder we try in our own human effort, the harder we try, the more we fail, the more we're up against, and it's more evident that we struggle and fail. That's why I'm submitting to you that this chapter is not good advice. This chapter is good news. And good news changes you. McGriddles are great. Good news changes you. What did I learn from the Bible? I don't know. Pastor made me hungry for McGriddle. I just want you to remember that good news changes. The gospel is not advice on how to change. It is good news that changes you. Just understand this. Many churches, and some that even call themselves Christians, their whole message is as though the gospel is good advice on how to clean your life up, make yourself better, turn over a new leaf, get religious so that God will give you his favor or save you. That's not the gospel. That's a man-made religion of works. And you can never work your way to God. And when somebody attaches works to grace and to the gospel, they've just nullified grace and the gospel. It's no longer the gospel. So the gospel is not advice on how you need to change. Now, if we're honest, we all need to change. We all need to grow. And if we're truthful to our own hearts, if you know Christ, you want to grow. You want to change. But the change and the power to do so is not within your own capacity. But it is within the power of the good news. Because the gospel is the power of God, not only to salvation, my justification with God, but also my sanctification, my maturity, my growing up in God's grace. It's God's work to change you, which is my second statement here. The gospel is not about me working. It's about God working. So understand something. Chapter 12, coming after all of Paul's exposition of gospel beauty and realities, chapter 12 is God working. It's not about you getting to work. And the gospel does not add hard work to my life. It actually lifts the burdens and frees me to love radically. The gospel does not add hard to an already hard life. The gospel lifts burdens and frees me to love radically. So by the end of today, you're going to see this is not about layering your life with 43 more things to focus on. It's about expounding to you the beauty of a different way of living based on the good news that's been declared. The gospel transforms us. And it all goes back to verse 1. I beseech you, I urge you, I plead with you, brothers, sisters, present your bodies unto God a living sacrifice. Chapter 12 is impossible unless you give your whole self to God. But once you give your whole self to God, you will no longer, in a process, you will begin to be less conformed to the world's way of thinking, and God will begin to transform your heart, your character, your core, and new desires will awaken, and you will wake up and want to be the person described in Romans 12. And it will begin to flow out of you more naturally than mechanically. So this is not about 43 things to remember to do this week. It's really about 43 beautiful realities that will come true if you present yourself to God and trust Him to transform you. When we are loved radically, my friends, we can learn to love radically. When we are loved radically, this way, we can learn to love radically this way. And I'm talking about counterintuitively. I'm talking in a way that's not conformed to the world's way of operating, but it's polar opposite. It's paradoxical. It's like, who thinks this way? Who lives this way? And the answer is only somebody that's been totally filled with a different kind of love. Only somebody that's been totally animated by a different power, a different presence in the glory and the beauty of God. So, with that, we're picking it up in verse 14. But I want you to look back at verse 9. Because this is the love take me over concept. Let love be without dissimulation, hypocrisy, fakery, pretense. Down south, they have a line for it. Well, oh, bless your heart. That means I hate your guts. And I have no sympathy for you, okay? Or sometimes they'll say, I don't like her, or I don't love him, but I love him in Jesus. That means I hate him. It's so funny. As Christians, we can pretend to be loving instead of actually loving. And by the way, this is the first time, verse 9, let your love horizontally. This is the first time in the book that he uses the word agape, God-like love, self-giving, sacrificial, one-way love, in reference to horizontal relationships. He does talk about God loving us unconditionally and perfectly. He does talk about us loving God back perfectly with the same kind of love. But here he says, take your phileo, brotherly love, take your storge, familial love, and infuse it with agape, God's love. Infuse it with self-giving, self-sacrificing, generous living, generous loving. Again, it comes back to that phrase I gave you last week. We can learn to give our lives away. And so I want you to see in verse 14 that God's grace empowers radical living. God's grace empowers. Remember, this is not good advice, this is good news. This is the person that God's grace intends to make you. These are the towers that he's building, and this is the wing he's adding on. Radical living. Look at verse 14. First, we see radical blessing. Would you read verse 14 out loud with me? Ready, go. Bless them which persecute you. Bless and curse not. God's saying, don't answer hurt with hurt. When somebody persecutes you, when somebody curses you, turn around and let the reaction, let the instinctive response from your heart be blessing. Now, I got to tell you, guys, that's so easy to talk about. Yesterday, my wife and I were leaving a shopping center. And we were waiting at a light to get out onto the main road and turn right. And there's another light on this going this way, perpendicular to us, and the cars just kept coming through and stopping at the red light and backing up and backing up. And so our light turned green. And we can't go anywhere because we're in a long line and there's cars blocking the driveway. So the first green light comes and goes. And the second green light comes and goes. And people are going and going, and then they're stopping. And I'm saying to my wife, how do all these stupid people get driver's licenses? What are they doing? And then the Spirit of God said, you know, you're preaching Romans 12 tomorrow. I'm like, bless them which persecute you. Bless them which curse you. And that's a silly little example, but the fact of the matter is, We lose our minds over some silly things sometimes. But beyond that, I'm sure in this room this size, there's some people that are getting some very serious persecution. I'm sure there are some people in this room that are facing some very serious injustice. Maybe it's at work, maybe it's a cranky neighbor. I don't know what your story or situation is. I just know this, God says bless. And that's impossible, except for God's grace. Well, we're only on verse 14. It's already pretty hard, isn't it? Let's go to verse 15 and we'll see radical compassion. Rejoice with them that do rejoice and weep with them that weep. Now, I see here this emotional fluidity and emotional resilience and durability that adapts quickly to a situation, and not just artificially, but sincerely, genuinely. And I'll tell you this, most of us in the room do not find it difficult to enter into someone's grief or sorrow and genuinely weep or feel empathy or sympathy, weep with them that weep. Let me tell you, the harder order is to rejoice with them that rejoice. What about when your team loses and your friend's team wins? You're still a loser. What about, let me go bigger, what about when somebody else gets the fulfillment of your dream? What about when somebody else gets the job you wanted, the raise you wanted, the bonus you thought you deserved, the recognition you think you deserve? What about when somebody else experiences a blessing? You know what the average person is, and even Christians, well, good for you. Lucky you. And there's this seething, envious inner child going, why not me? Why don't I deserve? Must be great to be you. Good little litmus test. When you scroll social media and somebody's having a vacation or somebody's got a new car or a new house, do you go, oh, that's awesome, or stupid? Rejoice. See, the picture that Paul is painting here is a person that's so full, so overflowing with the care and the love and the mercy and grace of God, so provided for, so content that they can look at everybody's blessings and go, yes, I'm so happy for you. That's awesome. And they can enter into someone's grief and have enough margin emotionally to genuinely experience and weep and bear burdens. This is what we're seeing here is a portrait of a believer with a full heart. It's a heart that's overflowing with vertical love so it can be generous with horizontal love. In verse 16, we see radical unity and humility. Be of the same mind, one toward another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate, and be not wise in your own conceits. Let me summarize that one big verse. Equally respect, equally love, equally socialize, equally embrace everybody at every point on the socioeconomic ladder. Don't have a cultural, social, or economic caste system in the church. Important when you're dealing with the blending of Gentiles and Jews. Really hard, okay? Relate to everybody in the same way, with the same love, with the same unity, wherever they are culturally, wherever they are politically, wherever they are financially or any other way. Don't be wise in your own, don't think you're always right about everything. Whew. Ouch, ouch. This one's getting me on every side. Man. If I were to summarize these three verses, it would be God secures you and secures your needs. So just live to bless. Give your life away. Radical living, but I want you to see that God's grace permits real peace. Not just radical living, but real peace. So the directives continue, and we're going to see here first that God's grace doesn't need to repay and it doesn't need to react. Look at verse 17. Recompense no man evil for evil. And you got to know, in Paul's day, there's a lot of cross-cultural evil happening, as in our day. Recompense no man evil for evil. The word is to repay. It's to react. Don't answer evil with evil. You don't need to. You're full. Whatever you needed from that person, whatever you needed from that situation, God's going to grace you with. You're going to be okay. You don't need to fight back. Next, we see in the second part of the verse, provide things honest in the sight of all men. Here it is. It doesn't need to deceive or mislead. I don't need to spin the narrative. I don't need to make myself look better. I don't need to construct a false scenario to exonerate myself. The King of the universe is on my side. He'll take care of me. He'll get me through this. He'll work it out. I'm not going to answer evil, injustice, sin with more sin. I'm not going to react and repay. I'm not going to construct a lie. I'm not going to deceive or mislead. Look at verse 18. It doesn't need to harbor unresolved strife. I love this verse. Let's read it out loud. Ready, go. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Now let's break this down into three parts here. First of all, if it be possible. I love this. I'm so thankful for this part of the verse. It's not always possible. I get asked probably weekly, Pastor, I have an extended family member. I have a parent, a sibling. I have a worker, a coworker. They won't reconcile. What do I do? And they're hoping I've got some pastor fairy dust or a magic wand or something to, well, bring them to me and we'll, spit on them and we'll make them, And I'm like, you can't control them. You can't control that other person's will. You can't force an outcome. You cannot force change. And in the case where you've done everything that you can do and nothing is opening up, it falls under the if it be possible clause. Because it's not always possible, and that doesn't mean you haven't done everything or anything wrong necessarily. Let's keep reading though. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, what's he saying? You are responsible for you. And you are only responsible for you, okay? And you are responsible for you. So you can't control everybody else's actions or reactions or responses, but you can control and predetermine and predecide yours. And so as much as lies within you is, you own your responsibility. You take up everything as it pertains to your behavior and your responses. You do whatever you can do to make for peace or to make for reconciliation. As much as lies within you, live peaceably with all men. What's he saying? Open your heart, open your arms, soften your heart, stand in the mercies of God and let them tenderize you and flow through you and extend mercy to the one who hurt you, even if they won't reconcile. So, Pastor, what do I do if I've done everything that I can do and they still won't reconcile? Here it is. You communicate, your arms are open, your heart is soft, and reconciliation is one breath, one phone call, one conversation away, and that is where you stand, and then you wait. And you pray, and you love. You bless, you love, you wait, you pray, and guess what? That situation may never turn around. But at least you can pillow your head with a clear conscience that you've done the right thing. You've handled it the right way, and guess what? You're okay. It's very difficult to be canceled. It's very difficult to have a people group, a coworker, a situation, whatever, and you thought this was a genuine friendship. You thought this was real, and you put your heart into it, only to find out down the road you got canceled. That's unjust. Probably most in the room have experienced that on some level. I have as well. Just coming to Connecticut got me canceled with probably more people than I even knew at the time, to be honest with you. It was the weirdest thing. You would think the Christian community would go, oh, good, a pastor's going to a needy part of the country. Not my community. I mean, some did, but some just were like, you're dead to me. Like, the one time in my life I most needed some friends and prayers and some encouragement along the way. And frankly, I reached out for some counseling on it. And I have a dear friend, you'll meet him in 2 weeks actually, who I went and visited him and sat down with him, and I said, I need you to talk me through this. I said, this hurts. And I said, I don't know what to do. I've done everything I can do, and I don't know what to do, but it's eating me up. And I'll tell you, my situation, it ate me up for 5 years, solid years, 5 years. And he said to me these words. He said, Cary, you're grieving the loss of what you thought the relationship was. He said, it never was that, but you thought it was. To the other person, it was purely transactional. To you, it was something more. And he said, so there is grief, so grieve it. There is a loss there, and there's genuine grief. Grieve it. He said, but you got to realize at some point, it only has the power over you and over your future that you give it. He said, and you can be at peace with the fact that you've done everything you can do and let it rest. And then he said, you can live your life. I was taking a walk with the Lord after that conversation, and this is what the Spirit of God said to me in this moment, and I'll never forget it. The Spirit said, what do you need from that relationship? What were you getting from that relationship that I haven't given you back? And I said it out loud. I said, Lord, there's nothing that I needed from that relationship that you haven't replaced in my life. And the Holy Spirit said, then live. Live and love. Don't need to harbor unresolved strife. 19, grace doesn't need to nurture anger. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves. Don't try to get back. Don't fight for justice in this way. Don't try to get vengeance for yourself, but rather, now watch this. It's not that justice is a bad idea. It's not that there shouldn't be vengeance. Let's track with the wording here. Avenge not yourselves. What's God saying? It's not your responsibility to get it right. It's not your responsibility to get payback. But rather give place unto wrath. And the idea of giving place unto wrath is to give it passage. Can I paint a picture for you? Let the tendency to wrath, to anger, to the demand for justice, let it pass through you to the hands of God. Why? Because God says, vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. What is God saying? Stay out of my lane. Oh, I'm all about justice, God's saying. I'm all about vengeance, but it's not your responsibility. You take it into your own power, you're going to fight evil with evil. And I'm going to deal with evil, and I will repay, so rest in the fact that there will be vengeance, there will be justice, it will be reconciled, it will be resolved. He's already promised in chapter 8, all things work together for good to them that love God, who are the called according to his purpose. So you could take the injustice and put it into God's hands and let him deal. Let him run in his lane. He promises justice. You're going to find out in chapter 13, God has an entire institution that we call civil government, the state, and it is the state's job to protect its citizens. It is the state's job to handle all that justice. Now, ours does it imperfectly, I get that. But Paul is not even saying that the justice system shouldn't protect you or you shouldn't try to work through the system to be protected. That's not what he's saying. In the next chapter, he's going to talk about that. He is saying, don't take it into your own hands. Let God deal with it. Let God represent you. And verse 20, quickly look at it. If therefore thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. You've got to be kidding me. Now I've got to give my enemies Thanksgiving lunch? I've got to pour them a tall glass of iced tea like they're buddies hanging out? Paul, what are you talking about? What does he say next? For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. You know the picture of coals of fire on his head is, here it is in a word, conviction. What do you mean, Paul? Conviction. Oh, well, let's tease it out a minute. Since you've been redeemed by the great, inexhaustible mercy and love of God, and since you have all of your needs forever and ever met, and God calls you to be full and flourishing in His care, and since you no longer need anything from your enemies, and they really ultimately have no power over you, it kind of stands to reason that you can look on them with pity and compassion through the eyes of Christ and actually wish your own enemies would meet the same grace that you have met. What? Well, let's go a little deeper. So remember when you were the enemy of God? Oh, yeah. Remember when you were in sin and willfully and wantonly violating God's commands, and you were a total offense to God, and He was absent from your life, and you were in rebellion against Him, and He justly looked on you as the object of wrath? Remember that, Cary? Yeah, I remember that, Lord. I still remember. I'm sinful, yeah, and wrath would be just. I deserve wrath. Well, what did God do for you, Cary? When you were His enemy, He decided to bless you. And He decided to give place to wrath. He decided to let wrath pass by you, and He took it to a place called Calvary. He took it to a place called Golgotha. He took it to an old wooden cross where He became a human being, and He went to that cross and He laid out on that cross as the living Son of God, giving His life and shedding His blood for you, and He absorbed all of the wrath that you deserved as the enemy of God. Jesus took it for you, so God gave place to wrath on the cross of Calvary so that He could bless you, His enemy, and lavish you with love. And when you realized that He did that, it convicted you, and you repented, and you trusted Jesus as your Savior. And since now that you've been saved, that's what you want for your enemies, here's how to do it. Love them when they're mean. Be nice to them when they're unkind. Bless them in ways they don't expect it, and when you do, it will bring conviction, and they will want to meet your Savior. Paul, you know what? It's easy to write this as you're visiting the city of Corinth in that beautiful Mediterranean region. But Paul, why don't you take your own advice? Okay, I think I will. I want you to very quickly take a detour with me. This won't take but a minute. Go to Philippians chapter 1. You guys okay? Philippians 1. So, some years after Paul writes the letter to Rome, he finds his way to Jerusalem. He's arrested unjustly in Jerusalem. He nearly is assassinated. He's taken into protective custody by Roman guards. He's protected from a second assassination, and he's secretly moved out of Jerusalem to Caesarea Maritime in the northern coast of Israel, where he's imprisoned unjustly for 2 years. He stands trial numerous times. He pleads his case numerous times, and finally he appeals to Caesar, which was a Roman citizen's right, using the system to get justice. He never fought back, not one time. When he was stoned, beaten, all of it, he answered with love and grace. He did use the system. I appeal to Caesar. 2 years go by, he's put on a ship, he's carted across the Mediterranean, nearly loses his life in a shipwreck, finally lands in Rome, and he's under house arrest. So you would say he's imprisoned. It's not the final dungeon of a prison where he writes 2 Timothy. No, this is some years before that. It's a long house arrest imprisonment, and while he's imprisoned in Rome, the very place he's writing this letter to, he writes what's called the prison epistles, prison letters. One of them was back to his friends in a city called Philippi. Why does he write them? Because they're worried about him. They know all the bad stuff that's happened to him. They're worried about him. So he writes the little letter of Philippians, and he tells them to not lose their joy. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. I want you to see two things that he says in this letter. Now remember, he's under house arrest in Rome, in prison, in the household of Nero, in the palace of Nero, or somewhere in proximity to it. Nero is the man that's going to persecute the worst of persecution in Christians. He's going to light them on fire in his garden. He hates Christians. Paul is now imprisoned in Nero's house. Look at verse 12, chapter 1. I would you should understand, brethren, the things which happened unto me. What things, Paul? The beatings, the injustice, the accusations, the false, the incrimination, the 2 years in prison at Caesarea, the shipwreck, the house arrest, all of this. They've fallen out rather under the furtherance of the gospel. Guess what? Friends at Philippi, God is using my hardship, God's using my enemies to open up gospel opportunities. Look at verse 13. So that my bonds, my imprisonment in Christ, oh, God ordained this, are manifest, made known in the, what does it say? Oh, ooh, that's Nero's palace. Turn over to chapter 4, one page. Chapter 4, verse 22, he closes the letter this way. Hey, my friends at Philippi, all the Christians here at Rome salute you, and all the saints salute you, chiefly they that are of Caesar's household. I think Paul took his own advice. I think the people that were imprisoning him and beating him and mistreating him, I think he loved them and blessed them and taught them, and guess what? Some of them got saved. And Nero is about to unleash a rampage of persecution on Christians, but in Nero's laundry room and in his gym and in his storage house and in his kitchen and his bakery, all his staff are getting saved. and a little church is forming in Nero's household. Why? Because Paul knew how to win his enemies to Christ. We're almost done. Got to give you the third thought. God's grace enables powerful goodness. Don't miss this, don't miss this, don't miss this. Look at verse 21, and you can congratulate yourself for finishing Romans 12. Let's read it together. Ready, go. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Here's what he's saying. It's a reverse strategy. We live in a day that says, fight fire with fire. You punch me, I'm going to punch back harder. He says, no, live differently. If you overcome evil, if you try to overcome evil with evil, evil wins. You have just become what you're trying to defeat. If you try to overcome evil with evil, evil wins. And I don't have time to go into this, but I will tell you this is the problem with the extremities of our current social and political climate. It is evil trying to defeat evil with evil. And in the middle of it all, there's good values that are getting lost. And there's good intentions getting lost. That's about all I can do with that can of worms right now. I'm just telling you, when you fight evil with evil, evil wins. But the other choice is to do what's right, even when it doesn't seem like it's going to bring a victory or vengeance or good results. And so here's what I want to say. In complicated situations, all you can do is the next right thing. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to fight back. I'm not going to repay. I'm not going to put evil on to fight evil. I'm going to do what is right even when it costs me. I'm going to step back and ask God to cover me with his grace, and I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not going to lie my way out. I'm not going to fake my way out. I'm going to overcome evil with good. This is what Jesus did on the cross. He overcame evil with good. Well, I need to wrap up, but I want to tell you a quick story. Yesterday was Game 7 of the World Series. Are there any baseball fans in the room? Wave at me if you're a baseball fan. Wow, much more than the first service. Okay. Was it a late game? Is that why? So this year's series was Dodgers. It was U.S. versus Canada. I'm just going to say it that way. Maybe some were rooting for the U.S. Maybe some were rooting for Canada. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but spoiler alert, the Dodgers won in Game 7. But I want you to imagine with me that you are a huge Dodgers fan. and you really can't deal with the stress of a game 7. Let's just say the way your psyche is designed, the way your heart's designed, game 7's really just put you over the edge. If it was a 4 or 5 or 6 game series, you can deal with it, but game 7's, it's too much of a nail biter, and you just don't want the stress. And so you decide you're gonna sit game 7 out. You're not gonna watch it. You're gonna wait until after the game. And let's say that your friends are watching the game and you're just kind of biding your time. You're taking a walk and putting on the earbuds and listening to Love Take Me Over or whatever you do to calm yourself down. And you're waiting for the end of the game. And let's say finally at the end of the game, you get the good news. Your team won. Dodgers win, your team won. That's good news for you. And so now you're gonna go home. You're gonna pull up your TV and I don't know if we even have DVRs anymore, but however you record what you like to watch, you pull up the game, you've recorded it, and now you really do wanna watch the game. You really do wanna experience the whole journey, but you can do it at rest because now you know who wins. And you already got the good news that your team wins. And so if you didn't know your team was winning and gonna win at the end of the game, in the third inning, when somebody struck out, you might go, oh, come on. And in the fourth inning, when they miss an easy double play, oh, what are you thinking? In the fourth or fifth inning, when they won't take the pitcher out, come on, get him out of the, and your whole journey through the game 7 could have been stressful and reactionary and full of strife and internal contention. But you don't have any of that. You got some popcorn popped, maybe a pizza and a Diet Coke, and you're sitting there and you're kicked back, and anything that goes bad in the game doesn't bother you. You're like, yeah, whatever. That's just third inning. We win still. Good news changes you. Good news changes you. You're okay because you're watching the replay. What I want to say to you as we go in a minute is, when you know Christ and His love, you can live your whole life like you're watching the replay. You can rise above culture and politics and strife and contention because the good news changes you. A final word to those of you that are afraid to love radically. Pastor Cary, you don't know how I was hurt? I put my heart out there, never again. Let me give you a final word. C.S. Lewis said it better than I ever could. He said, there is no safe investment of love. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping your heart intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully around with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken, it will become unbreakable. Impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. The only place outside of heaven where you can be safe from the dangers of love is hell. So my friends, yeah, there's risk, there's vulnerability. When you decide to love radically, you're gonna absorb some hurt, but the upside is incalculable. So let's ask God to help us to love radically. Remember, this is not good advice, this is good news, and good news changes us. Let's pray. God, thank you for this time. These are big, wonderful, glorious truths, and I'm sure most, if not all, the people in the room would love to embody in our behaviors, in our hearts, in our temperaments,